Hey everyone, Justin here for S&S Archery. In today's gear video, we're going to be looking at a new sight from UltraView, the UV Slider. Alright guys, getting started in today's gear video. In front of me, I have the UV Slider. If you don't know anything about UltraView, basically their whole idea and concept has been based around their lighting system. We have 5 LED lights that really illuminate the fiber optics. You can even brighten up your bubble level. But for the longest time, we've only had scopes available from UltraView that you could basically mount up on a sight body, for example, an HJ or Spot Hog. Now we have a complete slider sight from UltraView. So within that sliding sight, you're able to have set pins at certain distances and then use sight tapes and indicators to dial out and shoot different distances. So getting started, the whole idea and concept behind UltraView in going with the UV Slider, their whole idea was staying in the moment. With that being said, we'll get into one of the main features that kind of correspond to that stay in the moment, and that has to do with their DualDial system. So unlike a lot of other sights, instead of a lock lever that loosens the dial knob in a different position, the actual dial lock is up front, and you can easily access it with just one finger, your index finger. Now you're able to dial the sight and use your thumb to close it down. So it's a very fast, easy motion, so you're not searching for that lock lever. I think they nailed it with their dial system on this sight. Within the DualDial, there is an override for your adjustment. So if you get into a spot where you need to make a quick couple yard adjustment and you don't want to mess with the lever, you can still override this sight. So it is going to be firm enough, locked in the lock position, not to move on you. I've really put a lot of pressure onto this to try to get it to move manually, and it really won't unless you're on the dial wheel. So it is cool you have a little bit of an override. If you're going to be dialing out in those large increments, just go ahead and loosen the lock lever, close it down. So inside the DualDial, we also have our micro windage adjustment. So this little dial up front, it basically has a lock. We're able to pull it out, make our left and right adjustments through micro clicks. The one thing I did find with all the shooting and setting this up on my bow is there really isn't a hard stop or hard lock to this windage. So be very cautious of this. This is the one thing, it does stick out past the dial for your elevation just a little bit. So if you forget to lock that back in, there's potential it could adjust on you. So just be cautious of that. Make sure it's pushed in. You're going to be locked and set. All right, the next feature we're going to look at on the UV Slider is the QuickBreak. So I found this very cool to be able to disconnect your housing, your dial system from the rail, be able to clean it at any time or use for transporting was just a big benefit. So to do this, very simple. You just have the lock lever from your dial. You're going to dial all the way to the bottom. Here on the bottom, there's a little lock lever. You're going to roll past that and slide it right off. So very easy to disconnect. Like I said, you can get in here and clean the rail system and on the internal gearing. So to put it back in, keep that lock lever open, slide the sight rail from the top, and you're just going to hear it click. Then you're basically ready to dial out and it's set. It does act as a hard stop here at the bottom. So unless you push the lever in, it's not going to come off. All right, we're going to get into the base options available in the UV Slider. So this is the bridge lock compatible. Matthews Phase 4 fits great in my bow. You have individual divots here on the top. It's going to allow you to be able to slide the sight in or out. Not a whole bunch of adjustment, but you are able to kind of fine tune the scope housing up to your peep. The other mount available is a side mount. Very similar design. It's a little bit straighter. So this is going to mount on the side of your riser. So if you don't have a Matthews bow with the bridge lock technology, maybe you have a PSE, some of these other bows, you're going to actually use the dovetail mount that's provided, and then it's still going to have the dovetail. So you can slide the sight in or out on the side of your bow. So that is another option. And lastly, we have the Picatinny mount. So for your, say your Hoyt bows, any bows that have an integrated pick rail on the front of your riser, they're going to have a Picatinny mount option as far as a base. So Just know that on the Picatinny mount, it is a set distance, so there is no moving the sight in or out. So that's one thing. If your peep, if you have too much daylight around the scope housing, you may have to downsize your peep. But for the most part, 3/16, 5/32, somewhere in that ballpark, you're going to be able to line up on this scope housing relatively easy. All right, so we hit on the dial system just a little bit. Now we're going to talk sight tapes, the triple indicator, and the scope housing. So when you purchase the UV slider, it's going to come with the UV3XL SE in the 3-pin hunting kit. As far as we've seen, this is how this UV slider is going to come. The benefit of an UltraView system is you can basically change your pin cartridges out. If I wanted to run a single pin, a double pin, I can swap the cartridge, put it right back in, and I don't have to re-sight in the sight. So don't have to mess with the sight tapes. The middle pin on the 3-pin is fixed, so it basically, when I swap those cartridges to the single or the double pin, the top pin, the center pin in that scope lines up perfectly with that fixed pin. So I'm already set up, so that's a benefit. If you don't like the 3-pin, you want to go to the single or double, you can. You don't have to mess with all that sight-in process. So very cool. If you guys want to get a little bit more information on the UV3XL SE 3-pin hunting kit, did a video, put it right here, just looking at the scope housing in that video. So we'll go ahead and skip that part of it. We're going to talk the triple indicators now. So what's really cool about the 3-pin is I've got a 15 thousandths green, 15 thousandths yellow, 15 thousandths green bottom pin. What's nice is they correspond to the pointers. So it's the first sight that I've seen it on. You have a green top indicator, middle fixed yellow indicator, and then a bottom green indicator. It helps your brain process very fast. You can look up at your sight tapes, figure out exactly where you're at, know what pin you're shooting, and make that shot. So very cool. As far as that sight-in process, the sight tapes, everything about the UltraView has been my favorite by far. So I feel like they're the most precise tapes. The indicators and how sharp and just precise they are, it just made the UltraView, like I said, my favorite as far as the sight-in process. Another cool thing on the UltraView is the backside of the sight. You have another indicator, which is referenced to the middle indicator, which corresponds to the middle fixed pin. So you can see here, just did a sight-in video on the UV slider. I'll go ahead and put that up as well. But basically I was able to mount my calibration tape here on the side, go through all my shooting, get the correct sight tape dialed, and then finally put on my sight tape to the slider. All right, so the last thing we'll look at with the UV slider is our axis-y adjustments. So your first axis adjustment is going to be preset from the factory, which is basically our scope housing lined up with the rail. So that's already set up for you. The only thing we have to worry about is our second and third axis adjustments, which are very easy to set up. So we have micro adjustment for our second and our third axis. All right, so that's pretty much a breakdown on the new UV slider from UltraView. We've got a bunch of different videos on this site, from the sight-in process to unboxing to the second and third axis adjustment. Lots of content within this new site. But if you're looking for kind of the ultimate package from UltraView, a very smooth, very easy to use dial system, that emphasis on staying in the moment, this is a fantastic option. I love the lock lever, being able to reach up with one finger, loosen it, dial, lock it down with your thumb. The override, very cool. Like I said, my one gripe up front would be the windage, just not having a hard enough lock, so be cautious of that. But being able to swap your pin cartridges, go from the 3-pin to a single pin, use their lighting system, you just can't say enough about the technology and performance that you're going to get out of these sights. I do wish that the pins were a little bit better. If you have a state where you have to use the blind cap, we did find that the pins aren't quite as bright as some of our other competitor sights. So it's going to affect you early in the morning, late in the evening, but you know, in good sunlight, they're going to be just fine for you. And like I said, the most precise sight to actually go through the process of getting it set up, it definitely was a favorite of mine. So if you guys have any more questions on the UV slider or anything else that we've done in the past, please feel free to give us a call, shoot us an email. We'd be glad to help. And thanks for watching.